Live from Center City in Philadelphia, this is Fox 29 News at 5.
All right, thanks, guys. Karen Hebb's back with us now. You got a hot topic here?
Oh, yeah. Coming up, we're going to be talking about dating and race. Do you have a fever? A new book that has lots of tongues wagging on this one. We're going to be having this big conversation coming up next. I'm back with a whole lot more right after this.
Loving you forever is what I need.
Well, we're talking about love. Welcome back. I'm Karen Hepp, and today we've got a red hot topic, the kind that makes you a little bit uncomfortable, kind of squirm in your chair when you're talking about it. We're talking about race and dating.
J.C. Davies says, I got the fever in her new book. With 5 ripped dudes on the cover and section titles like Jungle Fever, you know that her guidebook to interracial dating is over-the-top controversial.
Jungle Fever for blacks, Yellow Fever for Asians, and Shiksa Fever sort of made a lot of press around Seinfeld. So I use that language because everything in the book is really how people would talk to each other in a conversation. It's not a scientific study, it's women and men talking about their experiences in their relationship.
It's J.C. Davies on the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
She makes fun of herself in this fake, pretentious book review. But who is this woman to talk? Well, she's no dummy. With a master's from Harvard, 10 years on Wall Street, and 20 years of interracial dating, Racy J.C. says she's just calling it like it is, talking about cultural norms, and the PC critics, they just aren't being honest.
Somehow, I think like in the last 20 years, we thought, you know how we're going to deal with race issues is we're just not going to talk about it at all. So anytime anybody says anything about race, we call them a racist, we shut down the conversation, there's nothing more to say. So the whole idea of my book is to restart the conversation.
All right, we're starting this conversation, and joining me for this, we've got Deirdre Childers from The Inquirer, the entertainment editor there. We've got Bill Anderson from WURD AM, talk show host, and Marilyn Russell, who's been up since 4:30 this morning on Ben FM. Thank you. What do you think? She's just telling the truth, or is she racist?
I don't know if she's racist. I don't necessarily know if she's telling the truth either. I think that she's going with sweeping generalizations. There tends to be some truth in most stereotypes, but she's taken it, used it to define everybody, and then written a book about it. I think she oversimplifies a much more complex situation.
What do you think, Deirdre? I mean, this is stuff she says, you know, real people say this. I mean, this is the way they talk, and, you know, there are certain things about, you know, cultures, that's why we have cultures, that are similarities. There's things that are truisms.
I think she says some things that people say often. One of my colleagues was saying today, well, she says things that are on bathroom walls, you know. It's very, it's very calculating. It's very provocative. She's a Wall Street manager, and she figured out a way, you know, to bring something to our attention that probably opens a dialogue on race. So I applaud her for that, but the stereotypes just go too far.
But is it opening a dialogue on race to kind of throw stones? And that's what I think the problem is. You want people to talk, but you want people to talk with each other and interact with each other and not immediately get defensive. And when you start throwing out slurs and stereotypes, people don't want to have a discussion, they want to defend themselves, and that's what I think she's done here.
Oh, I don't know. I think she's just kind of a little more in your face, which maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we need to hear a little bit of those kitchen conversations. You know, I was telling you guys in the green room, one of my best friends, she's white, she only dates men of color, and they've got all kinds of cute nicknames for her, like White Bread and Snow White. Is that a term of endearment, or is it racist? I'm just saying.
And what J.C. would say is that you just can't get offended by every little thing. Her boyfriend is an Iranian Jew, and she calls his between the sheets face a terrorist face. And people were like, what is she talking about? That's her boyfriend. How can she say that? And she says, look, come on. You can't wear everything right on your sleeve, and, you know, we just have to, you can't be offended in a racial relationship.
But my concern would be that that's all she's seeing. I mean, she's defining people based just on their race, based just on these stereotypes. I don't think that we can sit here and act like you don't see race or color, because we all do. But if that's what we're dwelling on, I think that's problematic.
One of her, sorry, Deirdre, go ahead.
And she makes you lose individuals. I think that when I look at chapters that are salsa fever, jungle fever, yellow fever, I'm thinking of groups of people, categorizing people by their group rather than individuals. So this is not a book about a relationship. For me, this was a book about dating and experimenting and treating men like they're smorgasbord you know, little snacks along the way, when a lot of us would prefer to think of our relationships as meals.
Isn't it even relationships?
I don't know where
she's
you
talking
get.
about.
Oh yeah, what is she?
I'm not sure that it's even relationships. I mean, she talks about the sexual prowess of different
Well,
groups.
she
She's
tells
talking about
stories.
sex.
Well, she's talking about sex, but I think more because she also writes in one of her blogs about how it's bad to have an experience. Like some people that feel like they have to have a black experience. She says because you're having a relationship with that black guy who's got real feelings, and so you want to run away from those kinds of people who are just looking to dive in and have some sort of experience as opposed to have a real relationship with you as a person. I mean, she would say her argument is, love, what's race got to do with it? Open up your options.
Right.
You know, if you're only looking within your own group, you're missing a whole lot of other people out there, and you guys are all out there dating and stuff. And
But
you
It
know,
just made me want to crave salsa. I don't know. What's the problem, really?
The way she's presented it, race has everything to do with it. She's saying race, what's it got to do with all of this, but then all she does is dwell on race and all of the differences across racial lines.
That's how you have to open up a dialogue. I didn't get the dwelling part, and I thought she was in some long-term relationships with different races outside of her own.
So I think she's big on, I'm going to move away from being politically correct. But just because you're not politically correct doesn't necessarily mean you said anything intelligent. I mean, you can have an intelligent discussion. Let's put aside political correctness. We need to go deeper, but let's not just sit there and say I'm going to push it just because.
I didn't want some boring old textbook. I wanted something that felt real, that felt funny, and that talks about things in a real saucy, you know, salty kind of language.
But she knows who her audience is. Her audience might be you. It might be some of her friends on Wall Street. Her audience is not me, and it's definitely not me.
I'm not reading my book.
Her audience is.
You're like, where's the vanilla fever?
Exactly.
Right.
I'm looking for vanilla fever because, you know, tell me about dating a white guy. You know, she doesn't go there. So I know that her book's not written for me, but it may be written for the woman who's kind of interested and wants to find out a little bit without necessarily going there herself.
Tell me about dating a white guy implies that you can define what dating a white guy means in a book or a couple of pages. And that, again, I go back to what's lost here are the individuals. You know, and I hope that there are people behind all of these different stereotypes. Yeah, you may be able to dance, but you're a compassionate person as well.
When I asked her bottom line, what's your favorite if you have to come up with something, and she said the people that came up with the highest marks with the women that she talked to, she said were the Indian men and the Jewish men because they have a lot of good qualities in terms of having real involved with families, real career oriented, real, you know, relationship oriented, really, you know, good and.
She also said they smell like curry. You know,
she said that was a factor. She did say that.
But watch them because they smell.
She did talk about
She did talk about that, and she said that's it's part of the culture. There's a lot of curry, and it'll be in the household.
And Latin men were instant boyfriends.
Yeah.
She called Latin men instant boyfriends. You love them, you know, one day, and they're yours forever. She, you know, she kind of had some categorizations that I think probably offend a lot of people.
I think it did offend a lot of people, but it certainly got people talking, which is all very interesting. We've got us talking. Thank you all for joining us on this Friday. Marilyn, Bill, Deirdre, we really appreciate it. Lauren, I'm going to send it back over to you.
That was great stuff, Karen. Thank you. This is why people are online dating, because then they don't have to smell or talk or even think about it, right?
And this is why we have those three guests here all the time, because they are absolutely terrific.
Yeah.
Just terrific. All right.